Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work for the Central Arkansas Library System, and I work at the Jacksonville branch in Jacksonville. Well, the Nixon Library in Jacksonville. I guess I'm kind of tired. Anyway, this is the Crafting with Opal program that I do on Thursday nights at 7. Tonight's going to be a program where we're going to do a sewing project, and it's going to be fleece mittens. And I've already made one of them already as a test to make sure that I understood the pattern and everything. Here, I'll show you what I made. And I'll be making the other one tonight. I'm only showing you how to make one because you just duplicate the process for the second mitten. So it's just the reverse. But I'll kind of explain as far as how to cut out everything. I've already got mine cut out because it's much better to cut all of the pieces out at the very beginning because it'll make it less confusing when you're putting the pieces together. So I'll explain more about that in a minute. But like I said, I've already got one made. I'm going to show you how to make the right one. I got the left one already made. Though I am going to tell you, even though the material I used on the inside is a fuzzy material on mine, I wouldn't recommend doing that if you're not real comfortable with sewing, because this was actually kind of difficult to work with this type of material. The outside fleece material was not bad at all, but the inside fuzzy type material that I used was kind of difficult to work with, and it would be just fine to do the outside and the lining in the fleece material. It'll work just as well. This is just kind of cute, and it's fuzzy, and when you put it on, it kind of feels better because it's nice and fuzzy, but it'll be just as well if you use the fleece material on both. I would probably use a solid color on the inside and a print on the outside to help you keep track of what pieces you're lining and what pieces the outside. It'll be a lot less confusing that way. And if you're interested in trying it out, I would be happy to email you the written directions that I found this on a website, and I just turned it into like a PDF that I could have written directions. And there's several different size patterns depending on your hand. They've got, the one I downloaded is one for adult women. They have other sizes like kid sizes and men's sizes and so forth. So depending on what size mitten you want to make, then you just download the pattern for that one. And I could download it and send it to you, or I could just give you the website if you want that, and you can just go and get it yourself if you want to. It didn't matter to me. Just let me know if you're interested. So I'm going to go ahead and start off showing you how to do this. If I can hit the right button. There we go. There's all my sewing or painting supplies. Okay. So I'll have the directions laying out there already. I was kind of reviewing them to make sure that I wouldn't have any problems, hopefully. These are the pattern after you cut them out. There's going to be 3 pieces. You're going to have one solid piece, and they have them labeled too. Adult woman mitten, and this is the top piece. And then you're going to have 2 pieces for the bottom. One that's, I guess you can see, this is how it would go on your hand, like so. This is the bottom piece. And this actually goes, I know it looks strange, but when you're putting the pieces together, you put them together like this. When you're sewing the actual fabric, and I'll show you. Here's the one that I made already. You can see the line right there, and there's the thumb. There's no line here because this is the top piece. So that's why we got 2 different. And this is the piece right here. That's this piece. And if you look at it that way, it makes a little more sense looking at it like that. And then you bend that up. So that's the top piece, and then this is the bottom piece, because you got to have that part that you put together. So this is what it looks like. Whenever you're cutting out your fabric, you're going to want to fold it in half. So I've got a big piece of flannel right here, and it's folded in half. You'll lay your pieces on top, pin it through all the way, all both pieces of fabric. You'll want to cut out your outside pieces and your lining separately. So you'll cut these out first, and then you'll get your, if you're using a solid, get your solid, fold it in half, pin them to the top, and cut through both of those. So when you get done, mine, I'm not going to have this because I've already put one of them together. I'm going to kind of show you real quick. And you want to kind of know what is the right side and wrong side of your fabric. I'm going to show you how you can tell. I'm trying to get this other fabric out of the way since I'm not going to be working with it. It's a little more obvious with my Nightmare Before Christmas fabric here. Alright, so here's, I only have single pieces right now because I've already put one of them together. But this is the wrong side on this fabric. And if you compare it, this is the right side. This is not fuzzy looking like this one is. So that's how you know that this is the wrong side, because this one, it just seems a little blurry when you look at it. This one seems more clear. So that's how you know that this is the right side and this is the wrong side. If you're working with a pattern fabric like this one that's got pictures on it, it'll be a little bit more obvious, but whenever you're working with maybe a solid color or another print, it might not be as obvious. For instance, with this one, it's not as easy to tell what's the wrong side and what's the right side. So with that one, you decide what you want to be showing on the right side and on the wrong side. If you like this side the way it looks better, then that to me kind of looks like the right side, and this looks like the wrong side. So keep that in mind whenever you're cutting out your fabric, because you want the right sides to be facing each other whenever you're putting it together. And the wrong side needs to be facing out when you're putting your pattern pieces down to cut them out. And I advise keeping them together. Like I cut all of these out, and then I went and cut out these pieces, which these are the lining. These are more obvious, of course, what's the wrong side and right side, because it's fuzzy on one side and the other side is smooth. So that's quite a bit more easier to tell. And the only bad thing too about this type is it's little pieces off the edges come loose all the time too. So this one I'm going to be getting little pieces all over myself while I'm working with this. Okay, so that's the cutting out process as far as getting all of your pieces. And when you're going to put it together, you're going to have two opposite ones. Like I have, what's left is, this is a wrong side and this is the right side. Well, whenever I was putting this together, I took the pieces that were underneath these because they were laying together when I cut them out. I took those pieces and separated them, and I did the opposite with the lining. I took the top pieces that were facing down to make sure that I was doing this lining. If you want to put them all together, like you can go ahead, if it gets a little bit confusing, you can go ahead and like put these two pieces together and these two, and you can do all 4 sets and have them already together. For instance, say that you took all your bottom pieces over here, you sewed these two together, then you put it with this and sewed it together. Then you could go on and do your other one. You could take the other pieces that are left and sew these together and then this together, and then go on and do it with this. Once you've got all of them done, then you can, as far as piecing them together, like these pieces together, you can do that at the very end if you want. Whatever makes it easier for you to keep up with what you've already done. Oh, hey, Sandy. Nice to see you. So that's kind of how you're going to be doing all of that. You're also going to need some elastic. And how you're going to measure that, you're going to need 2 pieces, of course. To measure your elastic, I'm going to show you. You're going to wrap it around your wrist, and where it's just fits around your wrist, and you not really stretched, just where it actually just rests around your wrist and actually fits. Cut it out, and that'll be 1 piece, and then you'll do another one and cut it out. Once you've got your 2 pieces, when we're actually doing this part, we're going to cut this piece in half also. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once you got it, you just fold it in half and then cut it to get 2 equal pieces. So I know I haven't started sewing anything, but I wanted to have this ready. And we'll be sewing these to the inside part of these once we get these put together. This one, there's nothing I'll have to do but sew that to it. But this one, I'll end up having to sew it also to it. But I got to put these 2 pieces together before I do that. You do not put elastic on your lining, because all you really need it on is the exterior piece. So that's fine. Alrighty, I'm going to show you how to, I'm going to just lay that there so I don't lose it, and move it out of the way. And when you're piecing these pieces together, let's see. Alright, so I still have the wrong sides. Let's see, I'm trying to make sure that all of this is on camera. I still have my wrong sides facing up, so I'm going to get some pins so I can pin these together. And this is the part that gets a tad bit confusing. So these are my wrong sides, and they're going to go together. So I'm going to lay them on top of each other with the right sides facing out, and I'm going to flip it over where I can see the piece that's rounded up here, and then there's a little piece sticking up right here. So we're going to line these up, and you want to make sure that the edge is lined up like so, but you also want this is too far up. You want this to be lined up also. It's not going to be, let's see if I can show you. This one's going to seem like it's going to be curved down a little bit. But you don't want that going off the edge where, like that. So I got to get it just lined up correctly. Flip it back over. You just want the thumb part to be lined up here, because you're only going to be sewing, let's see if you can see this a little bit better. I'm try to move this forward. So if you'll see, I've got this side lined up, and I'm going to flip it over, and you want that just to be, this to be lined up with here. I didn't probably cut my fabric exactly right there, so we're just going to be sewing, let's see if I can show you the diagram here. We're just going to be, I'll turn it where you can kind of see. We're just going to be sewing from here around to here. So we're going to stop sewing where this lines up with this straight across area. And so we really only need to pin that together. And I may have cut this a little bit wrong because this goes up a little bit higher. I don't know if I brought it up. Yeah. Trying to get it just to lay just right can be a little hard. So I'm going to pin this And you do want to make sure that your fabric lines up as best as you can. You don't want it to get out of alignment there. And I'm going to sew from this side where this little piece is coming up underneath like that, so I can see. Because if you sew from the other side, it's going to be hard to see this, where to stop. Alrighty, so we've got that pinned together, and so I'm going to move it over here. Moving some stuff out of the way before I put it over at my sewing machine. So move it over here, and I'm going to show you, depending on your machine, it's going to vary a little bit on your settings. If you've ever sewn with thick fabric before, you'll know that I'm trying to adjust this just a little bit. So, nope. Why is it not going down? There we go. All right. So you can see. If you've ever worked with thicker fabric, you'll know that your tension will need to be adjusted. It just really depends. So whenever you've got yours cut out, be sure to take some excess fabric that you had left over and play around with it on your sewing machine to make sure that your tension is going to be correct. And I'm going to do the longest stitch that I can on mine. It's a 4, so I've got, you can see the 4, it's set on that right now. And then I've got it on a straight stitch. Sometimes with this type of fabric you'll do a zigzag stitch, and we will be doing that for the elastic. Alright, so I'm going to turn this around and make sure that my thread is actually in the right place. Well, where is it? There it is. Okay, and we don't want to go too far down here. Let's see, I'm probably going to have to take that out to start with. Except I'm starting from the wrong direction now that I'm thinking about it. Alright, so I'm going to start on the finger area because I'm going this direction. So I'm taking that out. And I want it to start around the same area where this is. So I want to line that up and start right about that area. And I always start with mine with the needle in the fabric. And I'm going to do two backup stitches first. And let's see if I can get my foot under here without running into some stuff. Actually, that's not a good angle for you guys. Let me move that up just a tiny bit and tilt it down. That might be a little bit better. I don't know if I can get my hands in here, but I'll try. Alright. And turns, I'm going to do a couple of stitches manually here to do my turn because it's going to be a tight turn here. And I need to get that out of the way before I get going. My pedal has gotten pushed too far back. Okay. I'm going to do a little more turning here. making small adjustments, and try not to let your fabric get stretched. That can be kind of easy to do with this type of fabric. You don't want it to get stretched out any, then your stitches will bunch together. I meant to stop there. Well, I gotta go. I'm gonna go backwards because there we go. There we go. I went a little further than I wanted to on that. Get that out of the way because I'm going to have to turn that. Okay. Why did my... Oh, I see. That one little piece got turned down. I hope all of the fabric didn't get turned downwards. Okay, no it didn't. And you're going to go just around this turn, but you're barely going to come around this turn here. Let's see here. And let's see, I can't quite see, so I'm going to put my needle in there so I can lift it up and look. Okay, that's about as far as we want to go, and I'm going to back it up a couple of stitches. Alright, that's good. And so now this piece can be taken out of here. Alrighty. Well, there, get my thread out of the way. Alright, so this piece has been put together. I need some scissors to cut this thread loose. And it's always good to make sure that everything got sewn through correctly, because this is the side we were looking at when we were sewing, but we want to make sure, aha, see, mine shifted. That moved on me. Remember that piece got folded under? So that shifted on me, and that didn't. Oof. I don't know. That's not good. I think I'm going to have to rip that out, because that's not going to work. So let's see. Where's my seam ripper? Trying to find it. That's not going to work. Okay. So, I'm trying to think, how much of this am I going to have to rip out? And this is kind of hard to rip out because you don't want to get the fabric in the process, because it's fuzzy and it's kind of hard to get that out of the way. Okay. Because I don't want to get that close to the seam, because that will definitely come apart on me. So that will not work. Sorry about that. I knew I was going to have something like that happen. And I think I'm going to have to rip it back to here. Let's see. In order to get that to work right. Okay. So, yeah, to about there where the corner is going to be good. Oops. Alright, so maybe I guess I'll have to repin that, because I don't want that to shift on me again while I'm sewing that again. Alright. Alright, so I got that fixed. So I'm going to go back and do that again, and I'm going to watch this one little piece and make sure that that does not mess up on me again. And I'm going to start back to where right before my turn. You want to make sure you line that up exactly as you had it before. And I'm going to go back a couple of stitches to reinforce that. And then I'm going to kind of manually walk it forward to get it exactly where I want it. And then turn it. Alright. I think I'm getting it about, yeah. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully this won't shift on me like it did last time. Oh, y'all can't quite see that. Should be about right, and then I'll backstitch. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so now I've done that piece again, and I got to cut out that extra threads out of the way. And I want to look at the back again and make sure. Alright, so it looks like I did a better job that time. And I'm so sorry guys, I'm going to have to take a break real quick, and I'll be right back. I'm so sorry. I hate this about live videos, but I'll be right back. So sorry about that. Alright, so now that I got that done, I'm going to, sorry, I had to go take care of a cut. That's why it took me so long. And now I'm wondering, am I putting these together the right way? Did I mess that up after all of that work? I think I did. After all that work, I think, let's see. Let me make sure. Because this is the wrong side. I put, you know, that's about right, isn't it? That I did that wrong? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. Oh, after all that. This is the right side and this is the wrong side, and I should have been, boy. I'm on a roll tonight. I really am. I guess I need to stop doing these programs at nighttime. I'm just too tired to do things right. Maybe that's why I had such a tough time getting it to line up. Alright, well, let's rip all of this back instead of just that little piece. Jeez. And that'll be the hardest thing about this, is making sure that you're putting your pieces together where you have a left and a right side. I can't believe I did that. Put them together wrong, because I have my wrong sides facing each other, which I should have had my right sides facing each other. That's, oh well. I thought I had them, I guess I flipped them around whenever I was over on the other side putting things together. I had them facing right, but I just flipped them around and put them together wrong. Because you've got to have your right sides facing each other whenever you're putting this part together. And the inside mitt too. The right sides need to be facing each other. But yep, so that was really fun, putting it together wrong. I'm gonna have to see about not doing these live if I'm gonna keep making mistakes and making the program even longer, huh? Alright. See. At least I didn't get all of my pieces put together and then realize that I did it wrong, because that would have not been, I could have ended up with 2 left gloves instead of having 1 left and 1 right. And that'll be the most confusing thing about this, is keeping that straight. That you may want to do 1 glove and then do the other one. That way you won't have as much of a trouble with keeping that straight. Okay, now that I've ripped this, make sure I got all my threads out of here. And, okay. All these little threads. Yeah, so that's the mistake you don't want to make, is what I just did, putting your wrong sides together instead of your right sides together first, because you want the wrong sides to be on the inside, and that's why you would do that. And I should have paid attention to that. Let me put my seam ripper off to the side, and I'm just taking this piece and pulling all the little threads out of it. I figure you don't have to see me pulling the threads out of it, right? I just officially made this twice as long. I'm doing that wrong. Hopefully I won't do that on my other piece. Okay, so this is my wrong side, and this is my right side. So there's my right side, and that's my wrong side, and that's my right side. So they need to face each other. With any project, you always want your right sides to face each other when you're sewing your seams. And I just wasn't paying attention, and because they look so similar with this fabric, it's just slightly fuzzier, not as obvious what's the right and wrong side. I see dog hairs on this too from my dogs. Their hair goes everywhere. Okay, so I'm gonna get my pins again, and yeah, we're just sewing starting here, so that's where that needs to meet. And so this is where we're going to start. And I don't want, there's my little pieces still that didn't get rid of. And this fabric does do a little bit of turning, like turning outwards. You can kind of tell from after me having to rip it. Okay, so we want that to lay down correctly. Can't believe I'm having to do this all over again. And line that up again. Maybe you'll learn from my mistake and alright. Ow, I'm just determined and making myself bleed. I don't need to cut myself again. Alright. Alrighty. So still pulling out threads from earlier. And I think I'll pin this again right about here because this is my starting point. Okay. I'm so sorry. Hopefully you're not following along, because then I'll be messing you up. Alright. So we're going to start where this is directly across from there. I'm going to go ahead and get my pen out of the way. Alright, so start with it in the fabric. Oh, that's smart. Really smart. You know, I feel like I should just quit. 'Cause I can't seem to do things tonight. Oh my gosh. Okay, well I guess I don't have to cut all that out of the way. I'm pointed the wrong direction is what my problem was. Because I was going to start sewing this way and I need to sew this way. And that's not going to work. So I need to start on the other end if I'm going to do that. Start on this side. And I guess it's because first time I had sewn from that side. Alright, so let's do that instead. So I'm going to pin that side again and start on this side. And this is going to be right around where it just started curving. So I'm going to sew just a couple of stitches forward and then back up. Okay, so forward, and then we're going to turn. Maybe I can hurry this up now. And you don't want to get too close to the edge of the fabric because it will do a little bit of shifting on you. So we're just going around the thumb area here. Now there are other patterns where you can do like an actual glove with fingers. They're a little more difficult, but if you're wanting a bit of a challenge, then I would suggest trying those. There's some. The only thing is with them, you do have to do an in-between. Like this one's just going directly on top of each other. The two pieces, those have a lot more pieces involved with it. Okay, I'm going to back up. Alright, so finally, I've got this part done correctly. Let's hope. And I'm going to look at it again and make sure that I did everything I was supposed to this time, so I can put it together with my other piece. Oh, I didn't cut all of those off. Okay, so now I sewed around here and came around to this point. So these are the two stopping points that we have, and this is the wrong side, and the right sides are on the inside. And that's the way you want this, and I was doing it wrong the first time. Okay, so there's that piece, and here's my other piece that's going to be the top. We're going to sew an elastic piece right in the right where the wrist area is going to be, and it's hard to tell with this. Let me show you. The fabric, it's hard to see, but on the pattern it's easier to see. You can see where where it goes in more, and that's the area where you're going to sew your elastic on. And I used a couple of these to kind of hold them in place when I was sewing it, and then also, I think I also pinned it, or did I? I might have also pinned it too. And you're going to do it on the wrong side. So here's the other piece that I have sewn together. Let's see. I think if I turn this downwards, you can see better. So there's my two pieces, and that's the thumb, and this is the wrist area on this one. So I'm going to be sewing this across here, and then the wrist area on this one I'm going to sew it across here. So you're going to have to place it where that area is, and this is the wrong side of your fabric. You don't want to put it on the right side. So I'm going to do it on this one first, and just where the indentation is, you're going to either pin it, and I've got these clips, I'm just going to clip mine in place, and then you want that to stretch across to the other side. And so I'm going to, I have a dog in here that's trying to make her bed right now, so she's digging around on the floor, making noises. Alright, so that goes all the way across, and of course it's going to gather up like that. When you're sewing it, you're going to stretch it while you're sewing it. So once you get that like that, you're going to sew it. And for the zigzag stitch, you want to get a piece of fabric to practice on. That's what I did with mine before I started stitching it. You want it kind of wide, about like that. With mine, the settings that I set, I first, let's see here, turn this upwards a little bit so y'all can, wow, this whole thing's moving around on me. And let me lower this just a tad bit. I'm going to have to lower it anyway. So this is my width, and I changed it to a 5, which actually is the widest setting you can have. And then for my zigzag, I have to turn my knob to a 3 on this setting right here. So I turned it to my 3, and I also made my length a 3. So this setting right here is my stitch length, and this is just my stitch setting for what type of stitch I want, which is a 3, which is a zigzag. So mine's 3 and 3. Your machine's probably going to be different, but you want a length of about a 3. And you can play with it. Your whatever elastic you get might be a little bit different. It may not be as wide, so you'll want to practice with that fabric first to see how wide or that you want to set that length, because if you're using slightly different width of elastic than me, then you may have to change the settings as far as the length. Well, the length is probably going to be the same, but the width of your elastic is going to be different. Like I have mine on 5. You may not want yours set that high on yours. Okay, so I'm going to move that one out of the way. And I'm going to let it, I'm not going to take it all the way to the end. I'm going to let it come a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that as well. I'm not going to have it all the way to the end of the fabric. Alright, so I'm going to set that down, and I'm going to start with the needle in there, and I'm not stretching it just yet. I'm going to actually see if it's going to hit right. Okay, so that hit, it didn't go off of my elastic. That's what you don't want it to do. And I'm going to try to adjust this even more so you can look down and see, hopefully see that better. Okay, so I'm manually doing this first because I want to go back and reinforce it. So I'm doing a back stitch. Okay, and now I'm going to come forward and, oops, I was still backing up and I don't want to do that. Now I want to go forward and do this so much slower to make whoops, that didn't quite hit my elastic. I probably have my stitch width a little too wide. Alright, and so there we go. It's going to be kind of hard to keep that going because alright, and I want, okay, I'm going to lift this up and try to grab a hold of my elastic and pull it towards me so I can get a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to have to back up my stitch. Just trying to get it to hold in place. Okay, so that's good. And even though it didn't make it all the way to the edge, it came forward. That's not a big deal because you're going to have a seam anyway, so because you're going to be sewing the gloves together, so that's not a huge deal that it didn't go all the way to the end. Alright, so now we've got one piece of elastic in there on one of them, and we're going to do the same thing on the other one. I'm trying to cut loose the excess threads out of the way. I don't think you'll really care to see that. Alright, so we've got that. And now I need a piece. We want this to be in the same spot as the other one. You can always measure too to make sure that you're putting them exactly in the same, if you're not real, because it's kind of hard to tell on this one. So I'm going to measure from the bottom of that. Okay, so I can get a better idea to make sure it's going to be at the right height across. Alright, so I think that's about it. And about there. So I'm going to put that there. And then I'm going to put it there. And I'm going to stretch it across. And then kind of measure. I think one of them's a little bit higher than the other one. Oops. Okay, I think that's going to be okay. Okay, so now we're going to sew across on that one. And like I said, you got to make sure that you're sewing on the wrong side, not the right side. You do not want your elastic attached to the right side, because then that would show. Okay, I'm going to pull that a little bit closer to the edge. Okay, so I'm going to put that in there and go forward one stitch, and then I'm going to back stitch. So I'm going to put that down in there so I can undo this. So I can lift this up and get a hold of the elastic and pull it a little more to the end. Yeah, that'll have to do. Now back stitch. Okay, so now we have our elastic. So bring it back over here so you can see how I'm going to put it together. But I'm going to get rid of these excess threads, and I'll show you again. Well, nope, I didn't throw away the thread I thought I had thrown away. Okay, so I did come a little away from the edges on the elastic, but that's okay. We're going to be stitching these together, so these two pieces. So it doesn't have to go all the way to that area. It's okay. And it's plenty stretchy. Okay, so these are our wrong sides. So now we have to put our right sides together. And it's important to line up where your elastic is to make sure that you've got those edges together. So I'm going to use these clips again, and notice how the fabric is trying to curl on me a little bit after sewing. It's a little more difficult to get that to line up. Alrighty, so I got those two, and that's the main part, and then you can line up all your other fabric together. Let's see, I think I'm going to use these to do that. So And we're only going to be sewing down to about right here, because of course we're not going to sew across the bottom of the mitt, because that's where you're going to be putting your interior fabric or lining. So the tricky part is sewing around the thumb area. You'll have to flip your fabric when you're doing that. So I'm making sure that that gets lined up first and held together. And you can use pins. I just happened to grab my clips. Alright, so I'm probably using a lot more of these than I would if I pinned my other one together. Grab a hold of both sides. Actually, I'm going to come back on this side and make sure that this is because your starting and stopping points are going to be at the bottom of the glove. And you do want, when you're sewing this, you want to sew it with the thumb area on the top is where you're going to be sewing, because if it's on the bottom, you won't be able to flip the thumb area when you're sewing, and you're going to have to be able to do that. Otherwise, the thumb is going to get sewn into the rest of your fabric, and you don't want that. Let's see here. See, I think I probably shouldn't have. Right where the elastic is, it kind of wants to do weird things. So I'm gonna, because this, like I said, this fabric will stretch on you, so you don't want it to get stretched out in the wrong places. You want the fabric to lay down as flat as possible without being stretched. That's why I'm clipping it so much. I want the fabric to lay down like it's supposed to. I don't think that one's doing right. So I'm going to come back around. Did I make that side a little too... Okay, I'm going to smooth it out a little bit. It's not quite lining up. The bottom piece is a little bit bigger, or the top, yeah, I guess the top of the glove is a little bit bigger than the bottom of the glove, so that might have been what happened to me whenever I was cutting it out. So I'm going to keep that there. I may, and when I get done, I may end up trimming off that excess fabric. Okay, so that's probably what happened, because this is a little bit longer. Let me make sure that everything's laying like it's supposed to. So that must be what I did, but that's okay. I'll be sure that when I'm sewing, I'm going to keep this as my edge and not this as my edge, and that is on top. And my fabric, I'm going to smooth it out a little bit more and see if, well, I guess that's about right. Without stretching it, I don't want it to be stretched. So the fabric may have moved on me whenever I was cutting it out, and that's okay. Everything else is lined up the way it's supposed to. Okay, so now we're ready to start sewing this piece together. Oh, thank you, Jonna. And here's my thumb. I got to keep up with that. I'm going to start on this side, and we're going to sew down here, and then when I get to the thumb area, I'll have to stop and flip that forward and then get my needle on the other side, because you don't want to sew on top of the thumb area. Okay, so let's move back over here to the sewing machine, and I'll move a few things out of the way. Alright. Sorry about that. So I'm going to take that clip out, and I probably need to move this over here so I'll have easy access to throwing those clips in the little box there. Alright, so make sure that my fabric is going to sit right. Okay. Oh, and something I haven't done yet, and the last time I used my machine, I had it on the zigzag stitch. So I got to remember to change it back to a straight stitch. So on my machine, I'll need to go over here and turn this to a 2. And I'm going to turn my length to a 4. And I'm also going to turn this back to 0, because this is where I had it when I was doing my straight stitches earlier, and this is on the width of my stitch. So I'm doing a straight stitch, which is a number 2 on my machine, and then a number 4 is the length. I want the longest stitch. With bulkier fabrics, it's always better to do the longest stitch. So now that I got that set back the way it's supposed to be, I knew it was wrong because my needle was way over here from doing the zigzag stitch earlier. I don't like that this fabric doesn't seem to be lining. Okay. Okay. Make sure I'm towards the bottom. And these are curved, so that's a little, the bottom of them are. So that's a little confusing when sewing this. I should really, to make this less confusing, is to mark it with a blue dot where I'm starting and stopping, so it will be lined up for me. Ooh, this is black fabric. It's not going to show up as well. Okay. I was going to make that work better, but since I was needing to mark in the area that's the black fabric, it's not going to show up. So I'm just going to have to do the best I can. Okay. So there's my starting point, and I'm going to go a couple of stitches forward and then back it up. Then go forward, and I meant to move this a little bit more. I got really close to the edge of my fabric, which I shouldn't have done. Wow, that's too close. I need to get over on the side more. Yeah. Because I took a chance of going off of my fabric and not grabbing both pieces of fabric when I got that close to the edge. And you don't want to do that. I'm going to look at my other end. Oh wow, yeah, I got really close. Luckily, I stayed on it. Okay, and now I'm going to go over this area. Make sure my fabric's still connected. And I'm going to turn and shift just a little bit. Get that clip out of the way. And I'm getting close to the thumb area. I have to move that one out of the way too. Alright, so thumb area is important. You don't want to go past. I'm going to lift this up and try to look and see. Okay, I am right in front of where my thumb is. So, I'm going to put the foot back down and lift this up and move it forward, but I'm not going to let my needle go into the fabric. I'm going to slide my thumb past that point and then put it back down and then go into the fabric. I know that's a little confusing, but and I'm going to double check my thumb here and see that I went around instead of on top of it. Yep, I went around it. Good. Alright, this is where my bottom fabric's longer than my top, so I'm going to have to be careful not to go off the edge, so I'm going to shift that just a little bit. I'm keeping the shorter fabric lined up with the sewing foot. Oops. Can't believe I was that off on cutting it, but it might have got stretched whenever I was cutting it. Got those little fuzzies from my other fabric that I cut out. Okay. Okay. Coming back around to the other side. And one big difference whenever you're sewing the interior fabric, since it's the pattern is the same size and everything. Let's see. I put a bigger seam on the inside part. Let's see here. I'm trying to think here. We want this to be, this is right where the, I might have to move that out of the way. It's right where the two pieces from the other one we put it together. Let's see here. I want it to be pulled apart a little bit. Make sure that my elastic pieces are straight. Let's see. And none of my fabric is getting messed up. I'm trying to see. And she never really quite said what to do with this one piece right here, and which is kind of confusing. I almost feel like it needed to be flipped upwards whenever you're sewing that part. But, because the fabric is not quite stretched. I wonder if I can back it up a little bit. I can't quite see. I'll just back it up so I can see this area better. Because you don't want this to get bunched up. You want it to lay as flat as possible too. Okay. Which mine is not wanting to do. So I'm going to lay that out. Make sure. Alright, so let's see if we can get this. Yeah, that's not going to do what I wanted to do. I want the fabric to lay down. And I'm just trying to line this up with the edge. Okay. And when I was talking about she, I'm talking about the person that wrote the pattern. Okay. I'm trying to make sure that this is going to be about in the right spot. Where I'm going to stop in the same place I stopped on my other side. As I came around. Maybe one more stitch. And it would be good to, if you can mark it with a marker on each piece where you're starting and stopping on the cuff to make sure that they line up the same. Mine wasn't going to allow me to do it because some of my fabric was black, and so it wasn't going to show up if I marked it with the blue. Let's see, where's my... And I'm going to double check this. Yeah, it seems... oh well. Seems like it lined up pretty good. Okay, so this is one piece, and of course I've got a lot more fabric there at the top that I'm going to have to cut off. So I somehow cut this piece bigger than it should have been. My other one lined up just fine, so it makes me think that since I cut them both pieces out at the same time, I must have done something. Okay, so we want to make sure that it's all connected, and this is the thumb area that you had to kind of skip over. Alright, so we've got that done, and we're going to be putting together the inside piece, which I'm going to have to use pins to put it together because it's a fluffy material that doesn't do well with the here it is, with the little clips that I like to use. So I'm going to move my clips out of the way. And this is going to be hard for y'all to see because I've got white fabric and a white countertop here. Let's see, can I raise this up just a little bit? Yeah, that's going to be hard for y'all to see. Okay, this is my one solid piece, so I don't have to worry about that right now because I got to put together the other part. Alright, so these are my right sides of my fabric, and so I want my right sides, got little fuzzies everywhere, to face each other. And so I'm going to line these up the best I can, which this wants to stick to my fingers as I'm doing it. It's almost like it just, see, it's sticking to my fingers. Not wanting to, wow, almost like static electricity. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I know where my top of my thumb is, so I'm going to pin that in place. So maybe it won't shift on me too badly. This is wanting to move around a whole lot on me. So, woof. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and you want it to be pinned straight across. Let's see. That's the part that I'm having trouble making sure that it's lined up. And this also likes to stretch, so you have to be careful with it too. Alright. And so that's where I want to start sewing. I'm going to pin that too. Okay. Oh wow, that got kind of hung. I'm going to pin it first and then double check it since it keeps moving around on me so much. And making sure that these are all lined up is going to be, that's why I said that it's more challenging with this type of fabric, so I would not recommend going with this type. I would definitely do the lining with some more flannel instead of this type of fabric, because this is a whole lot more challenging to work with. than the flannel is. So, okay, I've got it lined up and pinned. And so I'm going to sew it from the top side like this so I can see this area. And you want to make sure. And I'm going to sew my seam a little bit more inwards. I think my other one I did about a 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to make my other one, the seam, just a tiny bit bigger, which is fine because this is going to be on the inside. So, and I want to start over here because I want where this starting point to line up with where I'm going to be, this area where I'm going to be sewing. So I don't want to start any further down than where this is. So that's where I'm going to start on this one. So let's go back over here. All these cords always make it difficult to line everything up. Why is it being a lot less? It's not wanting to cooperate. Oh, everything just went downwards. Okay. So let's raise. Well, okay, that's a tiny bit better. Okay, so then my needle's marked. There's some extra fuzz. Marks where I want to start. And sliding this in there is a little bit harder. I'm sliding it in further in than where I want to start. So I'm going to slide this down to where my needle is. And I'm giving it a little more room. Because this one is really hard to work with. So I'm going to go forward a couple of stitches. Then I'm going to back up. Okay. Get more fuzzies. That's another thing. Dealing with all these fuzzies, you're going to, if you use this kind, you're going to have it all over you. Okay, I'm going to turn just slightly. A little more turning. And more fuzzies and pull the pin. Get some of those fuzzies out of the way. Because I ended up, with my other mitt, I ended up with a slight hole in the top of one of them at one point. I had to go back and fix my hole. I'm letting it get a little bit closer to my needles to make sure that everything kind of stays in place. Just be careful not to run over your needles, because it will break the tip of your sewing machine needle off. I'm getting really, really close to that one. And I'm just going to go a couple more stitches around. And then I'm going to back up. Okay, so there's this piece. I'm going to cut that thread and cut my other threads if I can find them. Okay, so I got that piece together where the thumb is. Alright, so when I open it up, there's my thumb. There's all the little fuzzies. And then that's the bottom of the glove. Alright, and so here's my other piece. And that's the top and this is the bottom. And you want your right sides facing each other when you're putting these together. Okay, so I got fuzzies everywhere, and I want to make sure that I'm lining them up. And I'm going to go ahead at the bottom here and kind of, this is the same way. You're going to have to make sure that when you're sewing it together that the thumb is going to be facing upwards on your sewing machine when you do this, because you're going to have to flip the thumb area on it too as you're sewing, because you don't want to sew it down. Alright, so now we got to line everything up and make sure as much as you can that the right parts are lined up together. It's harder to see on this fabric too, if you've gotten the right areas lined up. And you can kind of decide on this piece here too. Mine got a little bunched up on me. Let's see, I need to work on that a little bit to stretch it out. Okay. Mine on this side got bunched up last time, so I'm paying a little more attention to it. And also this piece right here, you know, it's so much fabric, getting it to lay down. Let's see, I might have to do that ahead of time. I might need to pin that down. Pin all of that so I know which way I want that to go. Okay, where's my other pin? Okay. Okay, I'm coming back around on this side. I want to make sure. It does not want to lay flat. Get some more pins. And I need to pull that apart a little bit. Try not to get myself. Make sure that thumb area, I think I need to pin it a little bit. I think I'm going to move this because I was able to get a little bit closer on here. Ow. Nope, I didn't get all the way through it. Okay. Keeps wanting to stick to my fingers. Lots of fuzzies here. Pull them loose. Okay. Wow. Got clumps of it. Alright, so top here. Alright, I think I just about got it pinned right. Okay, so this is pinned. And now I gotta start sewing. So of course I'm going to be sewing from this direction on this side. I'll be getting the thumb when I come back around, so I'll just have to be careful about not sewing it down. That might be, besides making sure that all your fabric is facing the right directions, that's and putting these together, that's one of the more difficult parts of this project, is making sure that you don't mess up the thumb area. Okay. So you want to start this in about the same area that you did on the other one. Let's see. Move that pin out of the way. I'm going to back up a couple of stitches. Okay. Okay. All right, all this fun fuzzy stuff here. And it gets really hard seeing what you're doing in this area where you've got that one piece. So I'll probably have to go back and double check that to make sure that I didn't let some of the fabric from below come loose. Make sure I don't have a hole. Sorry, I was trying to get some of that fuzz out of the way and I bumped the camera. Keep bumping the camera. Sorry about that. Alrighty. And this is where I messed up on my other one, where I ended up with a hole in the top and had to go back and fix it later. It was after I went to put all the pieces together that I noticed I had done that. So I'm going to double check that before I try to put it all together. Because there's nothing worse than having it practically done and putting it together and then go, oh no, I've got a hole. Okay, so this is where the thumb is at right here. So I am going to keep going until I get to my needle that's in there, which I think that's about where it is. And we are going to lift this up. Let's see. See? Nope, not quite there. I want to make sure. A little bit closer. I can kind of feel my, okay, I can feel the fabric there. It ends right about there. Now I'm going to feel again to see if how close am I getting. Alright, almost there. One more stitch, is it? I think one more and I'll be good, because it's not advancing very far. Okay, so now I need to flip my thumb, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my needle and I'm going to push my fabric just past that point. Alright, and then take my other needle out of the way, and we'll put it back down, and I want to make sure. There we go. Got past it. So now we're going to go forward. Almost to my last spot here. Okay. Move this needle a little bit more because I'm going to come down a little bit further. Turn. And come forward a couple of stitches, and I think I'll be about there. Always got to do some backup stitches. Okay. Which, oh well, that's good enough. If I need to go a little bit further, I can always put it back under there and do that. Okay, I'm going to cut this off, and then I'm going to check for holes. Since this is so fuzzy, it's easy to end up with holes. And the best way, actually, to make sure you have holes is to actually put your hand in there and let your fingers feel for them, which I don't feel any. And if you want to, like, I've got all of this excess fuzz everywhere, you can, if you've got this type, you can kind of do a little bit of a hair trim to it. Not completely necessary, really, but because it's going to be going inside of the glove, so I don't think it would make it too bulky if you didn't trim it up. Okay. So now we got our two pieces. They look like they're total opposites, but that's good because one is going to go inside the other one. This one's wrong side out right now, but it's going to end up being right side out. Okay, so when we're laying these together to put them together, all right, here's my thumb on this one. I'm going to give you a little bit better angle on this, so you can kind of sort of see it a little bit better. There's fuzzies everywhere. Let me get rid of all my fuzzies. Okay, so, that's not very good. Let's go up a little bit higher so you can see. Okay, so there's my thumb, and that still is not good enough. You need a better vantage point on this. Come on. Stand is not getting, it's getting more difficult to pull apart. Okay. So, I don't want any of that stuff to be. So this is my thumb, and this is my thumb. Alright, so we're going to be pinning, let's keep finding all these fuzzies. We're going to be pinning these two ends together, but we're going to leave a hole so we can turn it right side out when we get done. So, they got to start out wrong side out, and I know that seems a little weird. And both the thumbs are on top, which is good. And you're going to line these up, and you're just going to try to line up your seams here too. Alright, so my top, I'm going to try to separate it. These top two are going to get lined up and pinned together, and the other side are going to get lined up and pinned together. I'm going to show you how to do that. I just wanted to show you the placement of these so it would make a little more sense to you as I'm pinning it together. Okay, so I'm opening it up, and I'm finding my seams here. And this is actually kind of hard to do too. So there's my seam. I have to turn it this way in order to line up my seams. Okay, so there's my two seams. And I'm lining them on top of each other. So and I'm pinning that on one side of the seam. And you're wanting the fabric to lay on top of each other. Okay, and that's just to get my seams kind of lined up as I get started here. I'm going to use a yellow needle for where I'm going to start and stop sewing. So I'm using these other colors right now while I'm lining this up. Trying to avoid the yellow ones. And I'm pinning it from the top on the side where I'm actually going to be sewing it from. Alright, and so here's my other seam, and you want to line those up also. And I'm going to pin them on both sides, because that's the hardest part of keeping the seams straight whenever you're sewing it. So that's why I'm also pinning it on either side of the seam. Oops, I'm having trouble grabbing pins. Okay, alright, so this is the side where I'm going to be leaving my hole. Ow! I just stuck myself. Alright, so, and you want to leave about 1.5 inches hole on there. So, I guess that's where I need my yellow ones. So, about here. You don't want to leave the hole in the seam area because you want to go over those really good. Okay, so that's about 1.5 inches. So that's where I'm gonna start sewing in one spot and stop sewing in the other. Alright, so let's move this back over to the sewing machine now that we got it pinned together. Alright. Keep finding little fuzzies on me from my fabric. And turn that down on there so you can see. Okay. Let's see if I can get in here without too much trouble. And this is going to be harder for me too. Alright, so I want to sew. You can't really see what I'm doing. And you want to lay the fabric down flat because this is a cuff area, so it's going to be really hard to get that to stay. And I'm trying to, where's my thread? Pull it to the side here. And I'm going to get that under there. And about to the point where that needle's going to be. There we go. And I'm going to put that down and take the needle out. Okay, so you're going to have to do this very slowly, this part, to make sure that you don't sew anything that you don't want to sew. Because you don't want to sew it, the top and the opening closed, more or less, is what it is. So I'm going to do a couple of stitches forward and then a couple back. And I'm manually doing those just to make sure. Hey Zoe, my other little dog came to see me. I can't pet you right now. I'm sorry. I'm almost done with my project. I'll get to see you in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to try to keep this as flat as possible and come around. I think you guys probably need to be further over this way, so maybe my hands won't be too much in the way so you can see what I'm doing. But keeping it flat is the important part. Okay. this. Okay. And trying this seam right here is going to be kind of hard, so I'm trying to reposition both pieces of fabric. Okay, get that one out of the way so that it's laying down flat. Yes. And the bottom part's flat, but then the top part needs to be flat too. So I'm going to stretch that seam apart a little bit. Ow. Okay. I'm going to move that one out of the way. Okay. And this will be like a very tedious thing, trying to slowly move this around. The easier part is when you're in the areas where there is no seam, because it just seems to all bunch up together. Where your seam, oh, Lucy, she's coughing. Alright. And I'm giving it a much bigger seam on this area to make sure that everything stays together like it's supposed to. So I'm getting close to the edge seam again. Because you can see it, my two pins, they're really close together. That makes you realize that that's on the side of it. I'm going to have to get that one out of the way in order to flatten this part of my fabric out too. Okay, now we're going to have to reposition a little bit more. I'm about around to the other needle, that's my stopping point. Okay, just a little bit further and make sure my fabric is sitting like it's supposed to. And I'm going to back up. Okay, so now I got to take it off the machine and turn it right side out. Okay, and let me get my threads cut off here. I don't know what I did with my other little tiny scissors. Uh-oh. I might have to... Yep, I didn't quite... Did I not quite grab it? Well, it's holding on. It didn't quite grab it really good, but we're going to turn it right side out and then sew over those edges, so we'll probably catch it when we do that. So what we got to do first is turn this glove right side out. Let's see, the thumb's usually a little bit harder. Oh, Lucy's barking. Okay, the thumb's always harder to, so I'm going to turn that right side out first with my thumb. Okay, alright, so the bigger portion will be a little bit easier to turn it right side out. Okay. Lots of fuzzies. Okay. This is the only part that you have to turn right side out because the other one is going to go inside of it. So where's my hole? Okay. Okay, so trying to figure out how I'm going to do this. Okay, so yeah, I guess I do have to turn this right side out and then shove it into the other glove. But don't turn the thumb area right side out because you're just going to be pushing it back into there. Okay. So where's my... Gotta turn everything the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so here's my thumb. Alright, so where's the hole at? This is so confusing. Okay, so now we're going to be pushing all of this into the glove. It's going to be a little tight at first because, especially with mine, because this fabric is so fuzzy and thick. Pushing it in there and finding the thumb to push it into the thumb area. Which I'm going to have to pull that out again to find the thumb. Yours will be a little bit easier than mine. Okay, so I found the thumb. And I'm going to need to get my thumb into it, actually. There we go. See, I actually have it like it's supposed to be. So now when I shove it in there, I'll be able to find the thumb area. And so I can, there we go. Fuzzies. Okay. So, alright, so there's the glove. It's practically done. Now we have to sew the cuff. You want to make sure that everything is okay and you don't fill any holes before you do the final sewing. Alright, so we're going to do the cuff area. And this is our hole, so we want to make sure that that is pushed in like it's supposed to be, because you're going to sew over that to make sure that you close up your hole. And you want to make sure, I'll have to use a little thing to get all my fuzzies, but you're going to start sewing in the area where the hole is first to make sure, but fold it under and make sure that your other ones are pulled all the way. Okay, so we're going to do a top stitch all the way around, and then that'll be the finished part of this. Okay, so there's my hole, and I'm kind of pushing it to try to lay it flat. Okay, and it looks like I need to start about where the eyeball is to make sure. And this part will be a little bit thicker and a little bit harder to do. And make sure the bottom of the cuff is not going to get up in there either, because you don't want that to happen. Alright, Alright, so here we go. Got to slowly shift it around. And make sure that your fabric's going to lay down while you're doing that. Especially on the seam areas, it's a little bit bulkier there, so. Okay. Coming back around because I can see my thread. You just don't want the other side of the cuff to come underneath there while you're sewing, because then you won't have an opening to put your hand in. Okay, almost back around to the beginning, because there's my thread there. And I'm going to back up. Alright, that's it. Just got to cut off my threads, and that'll be done. And then I'll let you know what we're going to be doing next week. Alright, so there's my threads. So there's my gloves. So I got this one, and here, I'll put the other one on so I have finished. Oh, you wanted to see what I had, Lucy? My other doggy. Alright, so then that's the finished product. Well, can't really see that really good. So there's my gloves. I think I made this one a little bit looser than this one. I made it a little bit tighter. Okay, I was going to say that one looks shorter, but I think it's because my watch is bulky and it's in the way. But so that's my finished product of this. Okay, and that was this this one, and I got little fuzzies hanging around everywhere. Next week we will be doing a fleece hat, just a very basic one. It's not going to have any lining in it, and it'll be actually a lot faster project than this one. And I don't think let's see, a picture. I've done this project in the library before. I'm picking up all these fuzzies. But here's a picture. Well, thank you, Jonna. This is a picture of the hat. It's just a very basic one, and I've got the patterns for all the different sizes, but it's a very, very basic fleece hat pattern. So that'll be next week. And the week after that, let's see, I keep hitting that. I want to look and see. I usually can remember everything. Fleece hat. Oh, and the last Thursday of this month, I don't have an example of this yet either. I'll switch the camera around. We'll be learning how to do like a marble effect on a tile, a ceramic tile. So you can do this to make some coasters if you want to, or it could be just any kind of decorative type thing that you want to use it for. And it's interesting. I found it online. It gives it a marbling effect with just some nail polish and water on some white tile. I'll show you how to do that. I haven't tried it yet, but it looked really easy. And if you want to seal it to use it as a coaster, then you can always use some Mod Podge on it to do that. So that'll be not next week, but the week after. And then next month I've got quite a few things kind of lined up for that month. Let's see. I've got, a fleece neck warmer. I'm kind of sticking with winter type things. And then we'll do a Valentine's Day craft on the 11th. Actually, I got an example of that one. It's unpainted, but we'll be painting these. Or you can choose. I've got this, and then I also have a neat wooden sign that says love that you could do instead of this one if you didn't want to do this one. This one's kind of cute. It has a light inside it that turns different colors. But that'll be the Valentine's Day craft, and I don't know if I have... I'm thinking about doing a basic granny square one or class after that, and then the end of the month a travel sewing kit, unless I change my mind. That's kind of what I have planned for next month. But anyway, that's going to be it for tonight, and I hope to see y'all sometime soon. And I will have supplies for all of these classes. If you want to get supplies to follow along now or later, you can always get the supplies. But the fleece hat, I've got some fleece materials, so if you'd like some to try that hat out, just call tomorrow at the library, and you can sign up for supplies for the fleece hat tomorrow. And then I'll have other supplies for the other ones later, but I only make them available the very next day, so I don't have to keep a whole lot of the supplies out at the library. But anyway, that's it for tonight, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye!